You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, home of the 2-hour deep dive interview with gold, platinum, and multi-platinum bands, including Stained, Blue Rodeo, The Arkells, Finger 11, Big Wreck, Moist, Bedouin Soundclash, I Mother Earth, Ill Scarlet, Neverending White Lights, Thornley, and many more. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast as well as share, comment, and like. Now let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He's achieved a level of mastery as the singer and bass player for the band Ready the Prince, who recently released their new album, Book of OG, which was mixed by three-time Grammy Award-winning producer David Bottrell. So welcome to the podcast, Steve DeCiantis. Steve, how are you? And is it true that you like to start your days by doing something that most of us would consider to be quite challenging?
Joel, thank you for having me. Yes, that is true. I start pretty much every morning with a cold shower, as cold as I can get it most of the time if I'm up for the challenge. Yeah, I've been doing that for a few years now, and it has significantly changed, I guess, my mornings, my day overall, my feeling. Yeah, it's awesome.
And do you start by getting in like a normal temperature shower and you bring it down, or are you just a maniac and you start right with cold?
Most of the time, I just go straight to cold, and it's just like me versus the water before I step in, where I'm just like, I got to do this. I know it's worth it. I know it's worth it, but every single morning it's hard. It is never, I mean, I guess it's easier because my body is kind of adapted to it, but like, it's still like, I don't want to do it, but I know that it's always worth it. Like midway through the shower, I'm like singing and just like, I feel great. So yeah, but yeah, it's still challenging for sure.
I read a lot of books on fitness and nutrition and health and personal growth, and almost all of them now talk about the benefits of cold therapy. And it goes back to Wim Hof, the Iceman, who's
Mm,
proven with all this testing, he has all these Guinness World Records of things he's done in the cold, and he helped popularize that. And then Joe Rogan with cold plunges and all
mm,
that has continued to popularize that. I'm reading a book right now by Aubrey Marcus, who started the company On It, the health company On It. And he, one of the things he's telling me I need to do is this, cold
mm,
showers or cold plunges. And the benefits are, I guess, back in the day, humans, we struggled with everything, like to find food, to
mm,
survive, to stay warm. And it was that good stress that really helped
yeah.
us. And nowadays, most people, maybe you have a little stress with your job, but outside of that, it's like you go from a
Mm,
perfectly heated bed to a heated shower to a
mm,
heated room to your heated car to your heated work. And it's that lack of physical stress that we all
mm.
feel kind of in a daze at all times. So they say that one of the things you can do is the cold shower, and it releases all the feel good hormones and all that. So you're feeling those benefits as well? And what inspired you to start doing that?
Yeah, definitely. I don't do it right in the like right away. I usually go for a run before the cool shower. And that's something I've been doing for like since high school, basically. I love jogging. So it's a little bit easier when you've come from a run and you get into the cold shower. But yeah, what started, I may have read it about it or heard about it on a podcast. Like I listened to a bunch of different um, you know, videos and podcasts like on like health and stuff like that, like you mentioned. So once I heard about it, actually, you know what? Now that I'm remembering, I think it was like a photo I saw. Someone shared it on like maybe it was Twitter or something like that. And it just said like the benefits of cold showers versus hot showers. And I just saw the benefits of cold showers and I was like, oh, I want all those things. And I also like I have dry skin, so it changed. Like once I had a cold shower, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. Like after I have a hot shower now, I feel terrible because like I have such dry skin and like I don't know, it just doesn't. I just know like cold showers are for me. So yeah. Once I had it, and I realized how good I felt. I was like, okay, I gotta do this as much as I can. So
I feel like
Yeah.
this podcast and your band, I feel like all the sponsorships are going to come out of the woodworks with these companies that promote the cold plunges and cold therapy and all that. So, anyways, I like to start these interviews by sharing with our listeners how the guests and I know each other, just showing the importance
Mm,
of networking, of building community, of fostering relationships. So, in our case, it goes back. Uh, Maybe a year ago where I've had I talked about in the intro that you have three-time Grammy award-winning producer David Bottrell that mixed the new album. So I've had him on the podcast as a guest twice. And in the last one, we covered his five favorite albums of all time. And we started the episode by spending about a half hour talking about what he's been up to over the last year. And he had worked with five different bands during that year. And one of them was you guys. So I make sure I'm prepared for the interview. So I went and checked out your band. Like I did my research on your band and I listened to the music that was available. I think there was maybe just the one single off the new album that was out at that time. So we talked about you guys during that episode. And then
mm.
when I looked into the band, I saw that you guys were out on tour with Protest the Hero and you had a date here in Ottawa. So I love Protest the Hero. I liked what I heard from you guys. So I met you guys at the Ottawa show here. And that's how we got here today. That's our history.
Yeah. No, it's great to be here. Yeah, I guess we got to thank David Bottrell for this interview.
David's the man. I'm a huge fan. Man, he's some of the Tool albums he did are in my favorite of all time. He's worked with Stained, who's one of my favorite bands, and Rush and all these bands. So David's a legend.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Dave. There's lots of time to talk about David as we go. But we're gonna do a full 2 hour deep dive. We're gonna cover your life, your career, your discography. But we got to get started all the way at the beginning. So, where does this love of music come from? Is there an earliest musical memory that comes to you now?
So I got to give credit to my mom for that for sure. She's a musician. She'll never really say that she's a musician, but she is because she played guitar, I think in her like later years of high school, and then she kind of played guitar throughout her life, and mainly just chords, but she has like some pretty badass like finger picking styles that she does, like one or two that are pretty impressive. And so yeah, like so there was always a guitar lying around the house kind of thing. And growing up, she would be playing like really great music from the 60s and 70s, all throughout like our childhood. Me and my older siblings, I have three older siblings. And so without realizing it, I was always kind of exposed to just like great songwriting and just like amazing music. And she was just always singing. She was just like singing her heart out in the car. Like I played hockey as a lot of Canadians did, and we were driving all around the GTA for games and stuff like that, and yeah, we were just jamming and singing along to songs, and yeah, like I think so. A lot of it happened like almost like without me realizing it. Um, that I was just listening to all this great music. So yeah, I got to give credit to my mom for that, for sure.
Traffic in Toronto is pretty crazy, so that's some extra time that you're in the car listening to music as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So can you remember some of those artists that your mom was playing around the house?
Yeah. Um, so the first that come to mind, John Denver. She's a huge John Denver fan. Rod Stewart, Jim Croce. Um, those are the ones that really come to mind, and there's so much good songwriting just within those artists. Yeah, Beatles. Then she went through a couple different phases. At one point, she had like this like Eminem phase where we
Yeah,
had
mom.
yeah, she yeah, like I guess I forget which album it would have been. Um Encore, or maybe the one before Encore. The Red Curtain.
The Eminem show.
That record. Eminem Show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was the record. So yeah, and then Linkin Park. And yeah, we were listening. I think she didn't really like the swearing, so I don't remember if she had like we had one CD that was like the censored version and one that was like the non-censored. We listened to both. But yeah, Linkin Park at one point. So yeah, like it wasn't just like the old stuff. Like she went through phases of like newer stuff too. And Yeah.
So with her playing guitar and having guitars around the house, you're a bass player, but did you actually start on guitar because I was lying around?
So she had an acoustic guitar laying around, but it was weird. Like she played when she was younger and then she stopped for a long time and then she kind of picked it back up. So she had like this old guitar from high school that was always laying around. But like I don't know if it was like properly strung all the time. But anyways, at one point we rented a guitar for like a summer and we rented this electric guitar. And so that was like the first time I played guitar or bass. But I did play piano, like all of us played piano, like me and my siblings when I was younger. So I like that would have been the first instrument I played, but yeah, the guitar came in and rented it, and I remember just like not enjoying it. It was like so difficult for me when I started. I was like,
Too
this
many
instrument is,
strings.
yeah, like just like a headache. So yeah, guitar was technically first, but I did not have a good time with it at first. And it wasn't until I went to an art school in grade seven. So I went to this art school called Cardinal Carter Academy for the Arts in Toronto, and I auditioned with piano because at that time I was at like grade three or four piano, and I got in, and then they put me on tuba, and then that was my instrument for the next 6 years at the school. So every single day I played tuba. But at that time, so that was grade seven, I decided to start playing bass as well because I was like, okay, I'm playing tuba, I'm in the bass clef. Let me start playing bass. So yeah, but funnily enough, with the tuba thing, my mom didn't want me to play tuba. She was totally against it, and she kind of made it seem like it was like a bad thing because she wanted me playing trumpet because she played trumpet and like she wanted to be playing like melodies and stuff, right? Because she was like, "Oh no, you want to be playing melodies." So it was. I remember this hilarious situation where it was me, my mom, and my music teacher. She brought me in like the first, I think like the second day or something. This is back when my mom was more involved in like school stuff. Like a year or two after that, she was never involved in anything. But like, at that point, she was still like really trying to like get me going with trumpet. And I remember the teacher was just like, no, like he's got to do it. Like every band needs a tuba player. Like you're like the goalie of the team. Like and I cried. I was in grade seven. I swear I cried because I was like, oh my God, I had to take this old like tuba home without a case. And I was like, oh my God, everyone's looking at me like I'm this loser with the tuba. And yeah, and my mom was just like, yeah, I don't know. It was a weird thing, but then like 6 months into it, I was like, I love tuba. Like this is like I'm playing like all the bass parts and I was playing bass and then I'm so happy that I ended up with that instrument for sure.
I thought your mom was gonna say like Lincoln Park doesn't have a tuba. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, no, she's just all about the solos and the leads, but bass is where it's at. So
Man, we're already four instruments into your playing here, and we're gonna add a few more. So where did the singing and the songwriting come into play? Quite a few years later.
yeah, so all throughout high school was just bass and tuba. I didn't really touch the guitar much, and I didn't sing much, other than like singing in the car and like stuff like that. Like obviously, like I sang, but like I wasn't like, oh, I'm a singer, I'm gonna sing songs. Like we had like a band in high school, and we did like our like school talent shows and stuff, and I would sing like backup vocals. Like we did a CCR song in grade 12, and I remember just singing some backup vocals for that. But yeah, it wasn't until after high school where me and Dan, the guitar player in Rated Prince, we decided, okay, like because we always used to jam, right? Me and him, I would bring my bass to his place, and we would just jam like me and him, me on bass, him on guitar. And then we heard of this band, Rodrigo y Gabriela, at that point, and we were so inspired by them that we were like, hey, we should just like start an acoustic duo and like just be like this like badass like duo where we're like playing like songs, but we're like influenced by Rodrigo and Gabriella, but it's also like rock, and it's like yeah. So that's kind of like we just had this like aha moment. We're like, let's do this because it was basically me and him at that stage where we were like the rest of the band at that point like kind of went and did their own thing. And it was very clear like him and I were like the ones that were still like jamming and wanting to do something with music. because we both like didn't know what we were doing like in terms of like our post secondary. Like we weren't happy with where we were at. We were like, let's try music. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened. So from there, I started playing guitar. So my mom at that point had just bought a new guitar because she was getting back into it, and so I had her guitar, and I actually learned on her new guitar, and I had Dan there, right? He was already like a great guitar player, so he taught me a lot, and then we kind of get got to the point where like, okay, one of us has to sing now, and yeah, I basically just won the job because I just sang more than him, and then I just became the singer. But I was like terrible at the start. So yeah, but that's how it all started. So right after high school, we started the duo. We were called the Science Club, and we just started writing songs. And I basically learned how to sing by singing my own songs. So it was like a really great way to learn for sure.
For some reason, in most bands, it's the guitarist that's also the singer. I don't know why that is. Were you inspired by some of the bands where the bass player was the lead singer? You know, someone like Rush or is it Primus? There's a bunch of bands. C Spot Run, the bass
Yeah.
player is a singer. Any of those bass led bands who were singing, did they inspire you?
100%. I mean, Rush was my biggest influence, bass playing wise. So it's funny. It wasn't really the fact that Geddy Lee sang that like influenced me so much. It was the fact that he like just his bass style. But then once I did go back to playing bass, because we had that whole phase of the Science Club there, and I was playing guitar, and I actually thought like I was going to be a guitar player. But then we kind of like went through a couple of rehearsals with like a bass player, and I was like playing like rhythm guitar, and then I just was like, I want to be playing bass. Like, what am I doing playing guitar? So yeah, like then I kind of realized again like how much I love bass, and I was like, okay, I love singing, but I also love bass. And so it was just like it made a lot of sense for me to just go back to bass. But yeah, like Geddy Lee as a bass player definitely inspired me. And then once I moved to bass and singing, I was just kind of like, if Geddy Lee can do it, I could do it. Like anything he's playing is harder. So because as you can imagine, playing bass and singing is very difficult at the beginning. So I needed that inspiration. He was definitely the guy for me who was like, okay, if he could do it, he's playing things 10 times harder than me, like I could do this. So yeah, for sure.
So you grew up just outside of Toronto. This is in North York, correct?
So just like technically inside of Toronto, like right at the border where Toronto ends, like just before it ends at Steeles, that's where I grew up. Yeah, young at Steeles.
And that's North York is what it's
Yeah,
called.
that's North York. Yeah.
So how much do you think growing up in North York influenced you as a person and later on as a musician?
I mean, North York, so like that's technically like the suburbs, right? So I'm pretty far away from downtown, and I think I just had like a lot of time on my hands. I wasn't too like busy doing things. Like, I'm like at that time I had like, a part-time job, and I would have been in school. But yeah, like I think just being at home, being the youngest in my family, I guess I had a lot of time to myself, and I wanted to kind of do something different. And I don't know if growing up in North York had too much to do with it. Maybe the fact that I went to the school I went to, which was pretty close to where I lived, and that's an art school. So like learning all that I learned there about music, even though at the time, like when I was in the program, I didn't really think I was going to be a musician, but I learned so much that ended up contributing to the musician I am today. Like, definitely gave me that foundation. So I think more than anything, it would have been like the fact that I was at that school for sure.
If I met you as a kid, let's say you were 6 years old or 8 years old or 10 years old, and I asked you at one of those ages what you wanted to be when you grew up, what would you say? A lot of people, that's before they figured out they wanted to be a musician.
Yeah, like I think at that time I was really into sports. So like there was a big phase. I don't know if it was like as young as 10, maybe a little bit older than 10, where I was like, I'm gonna be a football player. I loved football, and I definitely like I started playing football. It didn't last long, but yeah, that would have been probably what I wanted to do. Yeah.
And you mentioned to me before this interview that you love sports. There's some sports teams that you adore that you maybe spend too much time and energy cheering on. Which teams are those? Are they all football or are there other sports?
So it's basically one football team and then one basketball team. So the basketball team is the Toronto Raptors.
Oh, you have
Um,
to. Yeah, you
yeah, I love the Raptors, and then the football team is the Kansas City Chiefs. But I was a diehard Chiefs fan before they were any good. So I since I was like 11 years old. So I went through all the phases of them being terrible, and now they're like the team that wins all the time. So it's pretty fun. But yeah, those are my teams. I definitely spend too much time following them, but it's cool. Like what I've realized lately is that like I really admire athletes, especially, just like hearing the interviews and like what they go through day to day. I kind of relate to my life, just like the discipline that it takes to be like a great athlete and to be a team that like wins is like really inspiring to me. And yeah, I love hearing about the growth of teams and athletes. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm taking out of it now. That's how I justify all the time I spend on it. I'm like, no, this is inspiring.
Yeah, we can spin things in a good light anyway. If I met you at say 12 or 13, who would be meeting? What were you like at that age?
12 or 13, I was probably pretty awkward. Um, I I was a awkward yet probably like I was kind of like one of those awkward kids who was like funny awkward. So I kind of made it work. But yeah, I was pretty shy, you know, pretty awkward, but at the same time, like I don't know. To be honest, I don't even know if I can even remember how I was back then. I
Funny awkward is better than just awkward. So
I was funny awkward. Yeah, I wasn't just awkward. I was definitely funny awkward, but like I was not like now I feel like I'm a lot more I was a bartender for 4 years, so like I developed like a lot more social skills and just like but I never used to be like that. I used to be a lot more just like didn't know how to approach situations and but yeah, that would have that's the best way I can describe myself back then.
yeah, as a bartender, you're gonna make better tips if you're at least slightly, not socially awkward. The more outgoing
Yeah.
you are as a bartender, the more money you're gonna make. Can you
Yes.
remember the first concert that you attended?
Okay, so the real answer to that is the Backstreet Boys because my mom just dragged us or dragged me. I mean, it was for my sisters. They were just like diehard Backstreet Boys fans. My sister Danielle was like in love with Nick Carter. And but she was super young, but I must have been like maybe 5 or 6 years old. I have no idea, but I just remember being at that concert and it was just screaming the entire concert. Like it was insane. But yeah, that is like my first memory. It was pretty crazy. Now that I'm thinking back, I haven't thought about it in a long time. But other than that, like the other concert that really sticks out is Green Day on the American Idiot tour. I was probably in like grade six or something like
It's
that, and I remember,
2004. Yeah.
yeah, and like that concert, I remember distinctly like whoa. Like I remember seeing like mosh pit and all this crazy stuff from like the upper deck. And I remember the people in front of me were smoking weed, and I had no idea what was going on or what it was. And that was probably like the first time I ever got high because they were just smoking weed the whole show, and I had no idea what was going on. I was like, "What is this like? What are they doing in front of me here? Like all this smoke." But yeah, that like those are the two memories that stick out. Like the opening band, I wish I remembered the opening band. I should look it up because I remember that show and it still sticks in my head of like that opening band and they just got the crowd going and like there was just circle pits and it was just like craziness. You're seeing all the people like crowd surf and then get like sent to the back and then come back in and crowd surf. I was just like, what is going on? And then Green Day killed it. So yeah, that's like another show that I really remember.
I feel like for Green Day it would be like Rise Against or someone that would open. Like that seems like the kind
Yeah,
of fit. We'll have to go check afterwards the
for
exact show in
sure.
Toronto who was opening. But a few years ago, I had tickets to see Muse and I had tickets to see Green Day, and they were supposed to be a couple months apart. And then one of them had to reschedule, and they rescheduled to be the day after the other. So I saw Muse, and then the very next day in Toronto, I saw Green Day. So back to back within
Wow.
24 hours, I saw both bands. And Green Day, it's them. It's all about just like the raw energy and the crowd
Yeah.
participation is what I got out
Yeah,
of it.
for sure. That's yeah, they're great. Just totally like just walking around the stage. Yeah. It's all coming back now.
I actually just read today that Green Day next year is going to do a massive world tour that celebrates both their albums Dookie and American Idiot, and it's something. It's like the 25th anniversary or 30th anniversary of the album. I forget what it is, but they're going to do a massive world tour. I think maybe they play both those albums in their entirety and then their hits around that as well. So a big Green Day tour coming up next year.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So if you and I were friends at 16, if I went over to North York and you invited me over to listen to music, what albums would you be spinning at 16? So you're in high school here, just figuring things out. What do you play?
High school, well, I remember in high school I was listening more so to like my little MP3 player. So I don't know how many like full albums, but like a lot of classic rock at that point, because that was like my heavy bass playing stage. So that would have been like Zeppelin, Rush, Pink Floyd, um, a lot of that, like 16. It's hard to kind of remember what I would have been listening to at 16 because then there was a phase where I went through 16.
You had a little hip
I would
hop
have
phase too at some point, right?
Yeah, I had a hip hop phase around that time too. That's right. Yeah,
You got to blame
I
your
had like
mom
a
for that, right? With the Eminem
yeah,
video.
Eminem, yeah, that's right. It's the I went through a really big kind of actually at that time I went through a big house phase as well. Because at that point like house was like really popular. And I have to thank my friend Andrea Baldeo. I got to give her a shout out. She used to make me these little mixtapes and she would put all these like classic like house tracks on there. So I was really into house at that point too. Just honestly like anything and everything. And I've kind of always been like that. I've just always listened to all styles of music. So yeah, I mean, we could have put on anything, but yeah, definitely maybe some Pink Floyd. Um, just kind of trip out a bit. That would have been probably the way to go at
Nice.
16 for sure.
My favorite album of all time is Pink Floyd's "Wish You Were Here." So they have
Okay.
they have Dark Side of the Moon that's great. They have The Wall that's great, but "Wish You Were Here." There's just 5 songs on that album, but the first and last song together are 25 minutes. So it's
Yeah.
still a lengthy album. What are some of the jobs that you've had over the years? Our listeners just love to know that the guests here that are successful musicians, they're real people. They have struggled as well. They have done some shit jobs. They find it entertaining. So, can you share any jobs you've had over the years?
So my first job was a seafood clerk at Metro, which is a grocery store here. So that was like maybe 15. I don't remember how old I was, but yeah, that was my first job. And that was definitely like a smelly job. I would leave I would leave the grocery store smelling like fish every shift. So that was pretty funny. So that was my first job, and then I kind of moved to cashier at No Frills, so sticking in the grocery store life. And then I moved to construction, which was probably the best thing I ever did because it really taught me what like, hard work is. And
Did it help you bulk up for
my
your NFL career or?
well, you know what? I had already given up on the NFL career because the NFL career that ended in grade 9 when I broke my arm. Because I was like pretty small at that age and I was not big enough to be playing football. So I broke my arm and then I ended up being a little bit taller in my older years and yeah, that's when construction came in. So that was a couple of summers of construction was in between like going to university and then dropping out of university. I would go and work construction, and then I'd try to go back to university because I'd be like, I can't do construction anymore, and then I would drop out again. And that's kind of what I went through. And yeah, I and then I went to bartending pretty soon after that, which is what I did for like a lot of my like early 20s. Which was not a struggle. Bartending is pretty fun, at least at the bar I was working at. But yeah, I've definitely done some, and then little jobs in between, and I could still use the. It's not like I'm above any of those jobs at this stage. Like I definitely could be working those at any point. So yeah, it's you gotta make money somehow. That's it.
Do those jobs make you appreciate now when you're on tour and you're playing shows and you get on stage and you're doing what you love and the crowd is reacting in a positive way? Does it make you take a moment and appreciate that there are different ways of making money and they're not all equal? You're there doing what you love and you think back to like coming home smelling like fish or like digging a ditch or something.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I mean, and think about where our band's at. It's like, not to get too into it, but it's like we're not really making anything. Like we're just trying to make enough to break even, kind of idea. So in terms of that, like I'm just grateful to even have the opportunity to play. Like it doesn't even feel like it's like a financial thing at all, because it's really not at this stage. At least in Ready to Prince, like I play music in like restaurants and bars around Toronto that is more of a financial thing. 'Cause it's like covers and stuff like that. So that's a bit of a different mindset. But like yeah, Ready to Prince is like it's not even really even about money at all. So yeah, but like definitely when it comes to those jobs, I mean, yeah, you learn what it means to really work. So still to this day, I think about those jobs, and yeah, it's important to have that foundation for sure.
Yeah, you guys are on the upwards trajectory of the band where it's essentially like you've started a business and it's like you have to start,
Yeah,
the first few years it's like you're investing into the business because you have a
yeah,
long-term vision, and it's you're getting better at your craft, and you're making
yeah,
contacts, and you're building a fan base, one fan at a time, and it's compounding, and eventually you hope to hit a tipping point, and that's where the money comes in. It's like it starts with the passion and putting in the work and developing the craft, and that's where you guys are now, and you're starting to see kind of the good things come around with a great album, great sounding album, bigger tours, bigger shows. So I think it looks like everything's on the right trajectory.
yeah. No, totally. I mean, yeah, I mean that's the thing for us. If it was about the money, it would have never really made sense to even do it in the first place. Like anyone getting into the music industry for the money is like you're better off choosing a different industry. That's the advice I'll give you, at least as an artist. So yeah, but that's the goal in the end, is to be able to support ourselves off it. But it's really difficult to get to that stage. But that's not a reason to necessarily stop either. There's so much more than financial gain in doing something like this. So yeah.
And how early on did you know that you had something special to offer? That if you actually continued to work at your craft, if you took this seriously, if you put in the hours, if you stuck to the plan, that this could actually be a career?
Right away when I started writing songs, I had this feeling that I had finally found kind of what I was meant to do, and it was just right away I knew. I was like, this is it. Like I'm dropping out of school. I'm not gonna spend my days, in a lecture hall for 8 hours or whatever it may be. I'm gonna practice for 8 hours a day, or all day, even longer, because I know what I want to do, and I know that if I can do that, I'll just continue to get better. So yeah, right away, and it wasn't like I was a good singer or anything like that. Like I wasn't any good, but I knew it was right, I felt like I was good, even though I wasn't. I was like, oh, this has got to be good, because this is like so. It was just so me. It was just so real. So it's just like I didn't even think about it too much. I just was very stubborn. Like and like I had like a lot of pushback from my mom, especially ironically the musician in the family. But that's why I say she'll never call herself a musician, even though she is, because most parents they don't want their kids going into certain art forms, because it's really tough to make it financially work. And but I always stress to her that, like, if I'm ever going to make it in music, I have to be focused on this. I have to be putting my all into it. Um, but yeah, it's difficult. It's hard to convince others when you have such a passion that like maybe doesn't make sense financially. Um, so yeah, that's kind of another thing that always drove me too, is to kind of prove like this isn't about money. This is about kind of like my passion. So I wanted to, and it drove me to practice more and to try and get better. So yeah.
So let's dive into Ready the Prince. So we already talked that in 2010, you and Daniel started the acoustic duo, the Science Club, and then a few years later, 2012, Ready the Prince forms. What is the progression between the acoustic duo and then getting the idea to do a trio that is not acoustic?
So we had the acoustic duo, and we played some shows, and we had another band that we were really good friends with. They were called The Family at the time, and they had us open for them a couple of times. And so we kind of had just experienced how like a band um, is just such a different level when you have like the drums and the bass and like the live experience. Um, Even though like what we were doing on acoustics was unique, and still like people were into it. For Dan and I, it just always felt like we were meant to be in a band as well. Because to be completely honest, we still play acoustically, but we play covers now as an acoustic duo. So we still do it, and a lot of the things that we kind of like, the styles and techniques we developed in the Science Club, we're still using to this day. So it worked out well where we actually still get to do both. But yeah, we just knew we wanted to take things to the next level live. We wanted to be a rock band essentially, and it's just you can rock on acoustics, but like there's just a limit where how hard you can rock. And Rodrigo and Gabriella rock, so they hit it. But like we knew we kind of wanted to go, because like I did play bass and Dan always played electric, so it just felt like we were kind of playing instruments that we weren't naturally, like we were kind of out of our comfort zone, which was cool, but we wanted to go back to what we were comfortable with. So yeah, that was the progression after a couple years of the Science Club, and me and Dan always talk about it. We had like our last Science Club gig was like our best gig. It was just like there was maybe like 20 people there, but it was just like people were just so into it. Like we had totally captivated the audience, and it was just like the best like last Science Club gig. But like even though like people were into it, we knew we're like we're gonna be a band, like we're gonna do this. And then yeah, that's when we decided we knew about Jordan because Jordan went to our high school. So our first drummer, Jordan Ross, he was 2 years younger than us, so we literally waited until he graduated. It was like the day, like his last day of school, we went and picked him up from school and like brought him to my house, and that was like one of the first Ready the Prince jams. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
So I love the band name Ready the Prince. Is there a story behind that? It sounds like it's something epic. Like there's a battle or a war and it's like Ready the Prince. Like I don't know where that comes from.
Totally. I mean, yeah, like the story. So, me and Jordan at that time, we were huge Kings of Leon fans. So, I mean, I know that's where the Prince aspect comes from. Like, we wanted to use that element, um, like the royalty element that they kind of had in their name. We were trying to find a way to bring it into our name because they were just like our biggest influence at that point. And so we were just working on names, and then the it was a three-way phone call between me, Dan, and Jordan, where we actually came up with the name because Jordan and I had been talking, and we were like, okay, like the Ready Prince, like that's the name, that's the band name, the Ready Prince. And we're like, this is it, like that there's a meaning there, like we understand, like okay, the Ready Prince. And we called Dan and we told him on the 3-way call, we're like, what do you think about this name? And then he was just like, what about Ready the Prince instead? And then we were just like, that's it. It was like instant. We're like, yeah, that's the one. And this was after like a month of like brainstorming, going through dictionaries, like just trying to find this name, right? And so when he said it, credit to Daniel Prada, he said it, and we were just like, yeah, that's the name.
And I remember back in 2008 when Kings of Leon, so they put out their album Only by Night or Only by the Night. And
Yeah,
man, the 1-2 punch of the first two singles, Sex on Fire and You Somebody, were so undeniable. Like those two singles, if any band has one of those singles, that's like a career
yeah,
maker. And they had the two
yeah,
singles back to back, and they took over the world from those two
yeah,
singles moving forward. So I was a huge fan. And I think the opening song on that album is It Closer. It just has like
yeah.
the biggest drum sound, just incredible. That's where I became a fan. Do you remember at what point maybe it's a little later that you became a fan?
So my sister would be the reason I'm a Kings of Leon fan because she was a huge Kings of Leon fan, and I think she started listening to them like probably around that time, like because that was when like Much Music was still around. So, and she was listening to like the radio a lot, like listening to like 102.1 The Edge here in Toronto at that point, and so she was listening to Kings of Leon, but then she got into their early stuff, and that's kind of where she's like, you got to listen to their early stuff too. And so that's kind of how I was introduced. Like, Only by the Night was the record that like she heard, but then it was all the early stuff that really I fell in love with.
It's a little more
And
indie sounding, right? The early stuff.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, their early stuff is so different from Only by the Night. And it was just like that raw songwriting, that emotion. Like they're just like an incredible band. And yeah, like I love all their early records. And I had no idea, but Jordan was already listening to them all throughout high school. So Jordan, I think actually like more so at the time those records were coming out, he was kind of in tune with those records, or maybe a little later because he is younger. But like he like I will give Jordan credit. He is like this with all artists. Like he always discovers artists before they're actually like mainstream. Like he's just like that. Like he always kind of sees that in the artist. So he was already knowing about Kings of Leon before they even mainstream, listening to the early stuff. So
He
yeah,
should
it was
be
really it was
an
really
A&R
awesome.
guy. He should be an A&R guy if he has that ear to
Oh
discover
yeah,
music. Yeah.
he's got incredible ear and taste in music. Like it's really really cool. He's introduced me to so many artists for sure.
So we have very loyal listeners here at the podcast that some of them listen to every single interview regardless of who the guest is. So sometimes it's, the guest, the fan base comes out to listen to just that guest and then they're gone. For our listeners that are tuning in today that are maybe discovering the band for the first time, how would you describe the sound of the band? So I think one of the things that stands out the most to me about the band is it is very hard to put the band in a box, to pigeonhole that, oh, you guys are this genre or you sound like that band. You guys, it seems like you've given yourselves permission to just whatever feels good to you, you play. And then somehow, because it's you guys and your distinct voice and each of the musicians on their instrument, it always still sounds like Ready the Prince, regardless of if it's insanely heavy or more acoustic or catchy or whatever. So this is probably very hard to answer, but how would you describe the sound for our new listeners so that we can send them out to listen to your music after this episode?
Yeah, you just totally described like the like most difficult but also best part of our band probably. Like it's been the most difficult aspect of our band because it's been so hard for us to like find like a scene or like for like people in the industry to like know like how to market us or whatever, like it's just because we're so every song seems to be so different. But like yeah, we I guess the best way to describe it is like three musicians playing like I guess just playing what feels like natural. Like each musician in the band is always kind of bringing their taste into each song. So you get Dan on the guitar, and what he grew up listening to and what inspires him and the way he plays. no matter what the like style of the song is, he's bringing that into the song. And then, but maybe he'll play a clean guitar versus a distorted guitar, but it's like it's still the same kind of play style. So like that's kind of like I guess the best way to describe it. It's like we're still playing the same, but like maybe like the tones might be different in certain songs or whatever. So honestly, I don't know how to describe our sound, but I think now with this album, it's a little bit more in one direction. I think we're definitely like a heavy band. That's how I would describe us. Yeah, but we're a trio. I think that's a big aspect to our sound is the three instruments, and I think that is unique to a certain extent because we're you can really kind of hear what we're all doing on our instruments, and I think that's cool for people to hear too. So yeah, like a heavy rock band with that is a trio. That is that's the only way I can describe it.
Basically, what we're telling them is just go listen to the band, go to
Yeah.
Spotify, go buy the album,
Yeah.
and see for yourself what it
If
is.
you can find out, yeah, let us know what it is because we're still trying to figure out what we are.
So you guys release the RTP EP in 2015. So there's three songs: "Your Way or Mine," "Drunk Without a Drug," and "Egyptian." I went and listened to the band's entire discography, all the singles, the EPs, the albums, and I was really impressed with this debut. I thought all three songs were amazing. I thought you guys for a debut release, you guys already had a really developed sound and great songwriting and. So I was impressed. So I want to start by saying that you guys uh, produced you produced high quality music, songs, recordings right from the start. So I don't know if you have a response to that at all, but usually it takes time for a band to kind of find themselves.
Well, thank you. I mean, a huge credit is goes to Anton DeLost, the producer on that EP. And so he's a really successful producer. And but at that stage, he was still producing out of his parents' basement in London, Ontario. So it was really awesome how we ended up getting with Anton. So our drummer at the time, Stefan Lobis, him and Anton were friends from London because they both grew up in London, and Anton was recording Stefan's band throughout high school and stuff like that. So yeah, like it's a pretty significant fact because when we started working with Anton for that EP, that's what eventually led to Anton recording with Cleopatra because there was like the connection between us and Cleopatra, and then everything that's happened with Cleopatra from that EP, and then like it like that whole recording process like led to so much, and but it really is a testament to Anton, like his ability as a producer, like he really like knew what to do with our songs because like even still to this day, but like especially back then, like we were very much like a live band. Like we didn't think too much about what we were doing production wise on recordings. So to have someone come in and kind of take the reins with the production just to kind of help us like make like what we were playing live in the room like make sense on a recording sonically was just super helpful. Like um yeah, I think that really comes to mind, and at that stage too, like we're like Stefan being in the band, I think we had a bit of a different sound because of that. There's a little bit more structure to what we were doing. I was really into the songwriting at that point. Was different. It wasn't as I don't even know how to describe it. It was just a little bit more structured songwriting, a little bit more on the pop side, I guess. There's also a fourth song on that EP that isn't on Spotify. It's called Heart, and that was like that is the one song. So we do have a line where we say, you know what, this song is too far out of the sound. So then that would be a song, the song Heart. It is not on Spotify because Dan and I decided it was just too far out of the sound to kind of have it on Spotify with the rest of the songs. But it is out there. It's on YouTube and stuff like that. So you could check out, and you should check it out too, because there is a fourth song to this EP. And yeah,
In what way is that song too far out? Like too poppy or something?
yeah, it is just like, well, first of all, almost every Ready the Prince song ever written has been in a minor key, and that song is in a major key, and it is very like R&B. almost like yeah, really pop. It's just so different. At the time, like when the RTP EP came out, it definitely fit. But then once we started like wanting to be like a or wanted to establish ourselves as like a heavier rock band, especially with, Cleopatra, like there was a shift that happened when we first met Cleopatra and saw them play in this like really small venue in Toronto, and there was like no one there. It was just us and them. We just ended up being on a bill. There's like maybe four people there, and when we saw these guys play, it changed us. And we kind of knew like what they were doing was like what we also wanted to be doing, and like what we had kind of done in the past when we were originally a band before the RTP EP. We're more of a raw kind of like rock band, and then when we saw Cleopatra play, it kind of made us kind of like realize we wanted to go back to that, and then that's when we kind of just decided, you know what, Heart just isn't that. It's just not who what we are in terms of like that style. So yeah.
So online, I'm seeing this New Rock Mafia collective. Uh, it, can you share with our listeners what that is? And Cleopatra is involved in that as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, so Cleopatra is involved in that. Also, another band called Zig Mentality is involved in that. So we, a few years back, so this would have been 2018, around that time, we started what's called New Rock Mafia, which is basically, those three bands coming together to create like a scene, a community, and we just felt like there weren't a lot of rock bands that were kind of like doing the same thing we were doing in terms of like sound, and like we just kind of all felt like we kind of fit perfectly together, and we were all from around the same area, like in Ontario. So like we kind of knew like, hey, we could play shows together, we can meet up and do like, live streams, especially like during the pandemic. That was a big thing too, is like getting together and being able to put out exciting content for everyone to kind of like enjoy, and create a community. I mean, that's really what it came down to, is like we want people to know like, hey, if you come to a New York Mafia show, like this is what you're gonna get, and you're gonna, see other people that like because it's like it's just a one big community. So that's kind of where that all kind of came from. And it's been a huge part of the growth of our band, and it's really cool to have that type of foundation, and because there is still like the same people kind of who are involved in that community are still like some of the people who have been following us throughout all these years. So yeah, it's been a great thing for sure.
What thoughts, memories, emotions come to you when you think back to that debut EP that really kickstarted this amazing, journey that you've been on since then? I mean, it must have created new opportunities, finally having music as a like digital business card that you could hand out. It's one thing if you're only playing live. It's like, how do you share with a manager or label or someone that you're great if the only way they can experience that is live? And most bands don't play that often, or whoever you want to impress is in a different city, they're not going to come see you, or you don't tour there. So what comes to you when you think back to this EP and maybe the opportunities it started to present?
Well, I got to bring it back to, there was an EP before that I have to bring it back to, because we had an EP before that is also not online, because we made the decision that we just don't think that it's kind of like up to that standard. But like, yeah, the EP before that would be the one that really kind of did that for us, where we finally have music where we can go and get shows. So this EP, at the time, it was just called Ready to Prince, but now we call it the Lost EP. It's on Bandcamp, and that's like the original, like those are the first songs that we wrote as a band, essentially, Dan, Jordan, and I. And yeah, like when we had that, it was really cool, because at that time, like I think we put it on maybe like SoundCloud. I don't even remember what was around back then, but there was no streaming services. Like we're pretty old. Like we had a CD. I think there was SoundCloud though, because I remember we were able to like share it to like venues and stuff like that around the city that we were trying to get shows at. But yeah, I mean, it opens the doors to just be able to play more shows, and that was kind of really all we were thinking about back then. Like we weren't thinking about anything but like just like playing shows. And it was a simpler time. Even when the RTP EP came out, like we didn't even put it on Spotify. Like even though Spotify was around, like we had no idea um about like we are like the least like business minded band. Still to this day, that is the biggest struggle for us. Is just to try and make that like make sense in our heads because it's really only ever been about like the music and like playing shows and like having the opportunity to play shows and just make great music. So yeah, I mean, it definitely was eye-opening though because that's when we really realized we had a future for sure. It was with that EP because Anton did such a great job with the production, and then people really liked the EP, and that's kind of when we first started getting like true fans that weren't just like friends or like family members or friends of friends. It was like just like people from like anywhere that maybe stumbled upon it, which was like not a lot of people at that point because it was more of like a word of mouth thing. But yeah, like it was like, whoa, okay, we could do this. Like we can actually like make music that people enjoy.
So we've mentioned that EP, it's a little less heavy. There's some more apparent, bigger pop hooks on it. Would you say that some of your softer influences like John Mayer or Coldplay were more apparent on that EP, and maybe B, you were still trying to figure out your sound at that point?
Yeah, we were definitely trying to figure out our sound. Like we were always trying to figure out our sound. But yeah, back then, I will say I think Stefan had a big role to play because it was just Stefan's style. Like he would always bring in like a little bit more of that slower groove to the songs. So because we had like versions of we had so Your Way or Mine was originally written with Jordan and it was like a full on like rock song. Like it was not the type of song it is now. So that is like the second version of Your Way or Mine. And so it's just it's Stefan's drum style that really kind of brought those songs and kind of gave them the vibe that they have. Like even Drunk Without a Drug was originally written heavier, faster. But then Stefan's the type of guy he'll just come on with this beat and it just changes the whole thing. I love R&B, so when he plays that stuff, like it brings the R&B out of me, and like I just want to sing like that. And then Dan also loves R&B, and Dan's also like this type of player he could play over anything. So all of a sudden we're playing like these kind of more slow grooves, and yeah, like it just kind of was what made sense. Like I think with our band, it's like the players in the band is what really gives the sound in a lot of ways, for sure.
So speaking of the players in the band, one thing that stood out on that EP is the guitar work, man. There is some tasty guitar work on there. What would you say that Daniel Prada brings to the table for the band?
Daniel Prada brings like the unique element to our band. Like I think he is so creative, um, and it's very natural for him to be creative. It's almost harder for him not to be creative and unique. Like we're such a good match because Dan is the type of guy he brings in like these guitar parts that have like not a lot of structure. Like it's just him playing, right? And I'm the one who is able to kind of like hear what he's doing and be like, okay, that sounds like a verse, that sounds like a chorus. Like like him and I together is what makes us um, a band that is like unique but also uh, structured in a way. So yeah, like he's incredible. He only knows how to be creative. And sometimes it's too creative. Like what's cool about this new album is like I finally like tried to sing over his like craziest guitar stuff. Like Sabretooth 5 years ago, I would have been like, Dan, like I can't sing over
Where
this
do I
man. Like
come
what do
in
you
here? Yeah.
yeah, like he's written parts like that in the past, and I just been like, I can't sing over this man. I'm sorry. But then as we got older, I was like, hell yeah, like let me try. And I also just got to the point where I had the technical ability to sing over something like that because like you have to have a certain technical ability to sing over that guitar work. So yeah, like that's I don't even remember. I think your question was like, what does Dan bring to the band? Yeah, he brings the special sauce. That's he's the X factor for
he
sure.
brings the table to the table. So
Absolutely.
that EP came out 8 years ago, and even back then, there's just incredible guitar work all over that EP. And I have some kind words sent in from Daniel Prada, guitarist, here for Ready the Prince. So this is what Dan has to say. He says, over the past 10 years, I've had the privilege of calling Steve my bandmate. And over the past 15 years, my brother and my best friend. We were just a couple of kids with big dreams jamming out to Danny California. Good song, good song. We were now many years later, we've released so much music and have toured the world together. Steve's care, compassion, and selflessness has influenced me in ways he will never know. His passion and drive to always better himself as a musician and a person inspires me constantly. And his love and work ethic is what holds this band together. Grateful to know such a beautiful being. Anyways, love you, brother. So that's from Dan.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Didn't think I was gonna be getting emotional on the podcast, but yeah. Dan's a very heartfelt guy when he when he speaks from the heart. So yeah.
So let's dive into the next EP. So Note to Self EP comes out 2 years later in 2017. So three songs, Dead Roads, Cliff Diver, and Note to Self. Man, there are some great harmonies on this album. There's great harmonies in a lot of the Ready the Prince songs. Has hearing harmonies and singing harmonies come easy to you just from the start, or is it something you've had to work on?
It's something that I've developed because that EP was also produced by Anton DeLost, and he brought all those harmonies to the table at that for that EP. He is like a wizard with vocal production and like vocal harmonies, and he just heard all those hooks, and he was like, hey, like let's add a harmony over this hook, and he kind of like really like I learned a lot even just from recording with him because I would kind of take that to our next recordings. Because then after once we started working with different producers, it was kind of more. I kind of then took the reins for the harmonies and started really thinking about harmonies. So yeah, it's definitely been something that's developed. It's not something that I used to really understand, and but now I do like I hear harmonies now. When I'm working on demos for songs, like I'm always like, okay, yeah, there's definitely got to be a harmony on this hook. So it's just something naturally that I've developed. And yeah, but that EP definitely Anton was hearing that stuff out for sure.
So we have a comment sent in from a fan. So his Twitter handle is at STSRHT. And here's his question. He says, he has beautiful tonality. I wonder how he takes care of his voice.
Mm.
Any tricks?
I,
Any insider
oh yeah.
information?
You know, this is the biggest probably I guess thing that people don't know about is like how much thought and care goes into taking care of your voice. That is something I've been focused on and trying to figure out like throughout the entirety of Ready the Prince because like the beginning of the band I used to be like just singing with terrible technique and halfway through a show I'd be like losing my voice already because I'd just be up there like raw just like screaming my head off trying to just get these notes to come out like trying to extend my range and try and like I'm a very passionate singer but back then it was like passion and zero technique and it just came to the point where I was just like I gotta figure this out so yeah I mean eventually I started learning more techniques and I'm still to this day developing my voice but like the biggest thing is I'm actually a vocal teacher now. So I teach vocals now and I teach these techniques that I've learned and like I guess philosophies behind it. But the biggest thing is just to try and control like try to learn how to sing with emotion, but like be really controlled and like not sing with any tension. And try to let your voice be flexible and not strain it if you can. But I mean, sometimes you have to if you want to get certain sounds. So I will say there's a big difference between singing live and singing in the studio. singing live, you have to really focus on technique if you want to be able to get through, even like, and this still is a challenge on tour, but like even getting through like back-to-back shows it can be difficult, especially singing with, rock is difficult. It is loud on stage, and that is the hardest thing for the singer because you can't hear yourself. So yeah, still to this day, I am trying to learn. But I will say, okay, number one tip then is keeping your voice well rested. You need to get sleep. You need to preserve the instrument, and that's the biggest thing I will say that affects my voice for sure.
And one thing, I guess a couple things that make it harder for you is that you guys do a lot of touring. So it's just a lot of shows, so it's if if you're having some challenges with your voice, it's like you might have 2 or 3 more days to go. And also with your music, it's intense. There's some screaming, which must be harder on the
Mm.
voice. So there's a couple things that work against you as well.
For sure, it's really really tough. I when I started singing, I was singing like a complete octave lower. I had to develop like my whole like higher octave. So like it's extra challenging for me because when my voice isn't at 100%, I'm in a lot of ways like just singing unnaturally because I can't really tap into those techniques. So yeah, like I don't drink any alcohol on the road. I don't smoke. I don't like I try to get as much sleep as I can, even though I'm not the best sleeper on the road. But yeah, I have to be really kind of diligent with that stuff because even like a drop of alcohol, and maybe this is more mental than it is anything, but like it can throw off my whole set. So like yeah, it's really tough, but I've been stubborn about it for so many years. Like I'm like, no, I'm gonna sing these songs exactly like how I recorded them, and even through singing covers, that's been a huge development in my voice. Is like singing like 3 sets of covers in a night. And like I always like I never like changing keys of songs, so I would always force myself to kind of figure out how to sing these songs. So yeah, it's tough, and yeah, this new album is like even harder to sing than anything else. So it's like I'm getting my ass kicked on tour for sure.
Is Sabretooth the hardest of the songs to sing?
How
Seems
did
like
you
it would
know?
be.
Yeah, it's very difficult, very difficult. Again, another example of like I will never be able to sing that live like how it is on the recording. Like it is, if people were there for when I recorded that, it was I was like literally lightheaded
Hot
after
mess.
each take, just crazy. Like it is definitely intense. But there's like a certain emotion like on the record that I needed to get. But live, like it's different. It's different. There's so much other energy and emotion happening. So, but I'm still working on that. Like it's gonna be a work in progress for the next couple of years with that song. Like it has been for all our songs. Like I didn't sing, Lightning nearly as well on the record as I can now, for example. Note to Self is the perfect example of a song where if you listen to the record, you could hear how bad my technique is and how much I'm straining. And now when I sing it live, it's like I sing it with great technique. But with that being said, there's a certain charm to the bad technique that gives the song like a little bit more soul. So, it's really all subjective, but um, I'm still learning how to sing my songs. Is I guess is the thing. Yeah, you nailed it. Sabretooth's definitely the hardest.
So after that EP, you guys went on to release just a bunch of singles between 2018 and 2021. So Torn Up in 2018, All the Love I Have to Give, Tina, Paralysis, and PB&J in 2019, Regicide in 2020, Pray and Lightning in 2021. So all those songs have over 100,000 plays just on Spotify alone, which is like a shocking amount of plays. And then the three songs, Lightning, Torn Up, and PB&J, have between 400,000 and 800,000 plays on Spotify. That is, there's like massive radio singles from like multi-platinum selling artists that don't have that many plays for their songs on Spotify. Why do you think people love those three songs so much? Lightning, Torn Up, and PB&J.
Um, that is tough. Like, to be honest, I don't even know. Like, it's been such a slow build with those songs. Like the streams just kind of like keep slowly building. So I don't actually have Spotify anymore. so I don't keep track of it anymore, which is like which is healthy for me for sure. But to hear that is I mean it's interesting how the algorithm works because like it'll just keep pushing these songs because people seem to keep listening to them and or maybe like they've reached a certain level in the algorithm that they just continue to get pushed out and more people are listening to the song. But in terms of why people like the song, like I think those are probably more of our like uh hooky poppier songs. So I think that's probably part of it, you know, just like they're a little bit more wide-reaching songs. Um, and yeah, I think they're all unique songs, but I guess they're all different. Like if you, even if you look at like PB and J and Lightning, like they're very different styles. So maybe it has more to do with just the structure, the simple structures, the choruses most likely. Yeah, it's tough to say. Even PBJ is like the biggest kind of like we had no idea with that song because we actually released that with Paralysis and we did like a music video for Paralysis and we were like that was the song and then
You bet
PBJ
on
is
the
the
wrong
afterthought.
horse there. You bet on
Oh,
the wrong
well,
horse.
not only did we been on the wrong horse, we weren't even going to record PB&J. It was only because Brian Moncar's our producer for all those songs. He was like he basically called us and he was like, "Hey, like I teach at what used to be called Ryerson University," and he was like, "We need a band to come in for my audio engineering class, like to come in and play, like the school will pay you guys, like come in and let's record a song." And we went in there and we were like, "Okay, cool, like." Let's just record PB&J then because like it was like another song like we actually at that time like we had a bunch of songs that never got recorded and that was one of them and there's the other songs that didn't get recorded still never got recorded but yeah like so PB&J was just like the I guess the best one of the songs we like didn't record and we are like let's just record this one and we recorded it for free at the university in one day and then it ended up doing what it did so it was like it's just so funny. It's just so funny that it happens that way because it just goes to show like you can spend all this money and like have all these plans and then it just ends up being songs a song that you don't even realize has the potential it has to do well on streaming, you know. Which again, I have no idea how these songs end up doing well on streaming. It's so hard to even understand it, but I'm just thankful for sure.
I love Brian Moncars, and I didn't know that he had a history with the band. He's
Yeah.
provided quotes for some of the guests on the podcast before, so he's a friend of the podcast. I know him from my I was at Metalworks for 7 years, the recording studio in
Yeah.
Mississauga, and and you know we're going to talk more about David Bottrell. Brian Moncars has a history with David Bottrell. I believe they had a
Yeah.
recording studio together.
Yeah.
I believe they did the Circus Survive album together, different projects. So yeah, I didn't know Brian Moncars was involved. So I'm glad to hear that he has a part to do with the Ready the Prince history.
Yeah, no, he's a big part to do with it. He produced well he produced and mixed um Tina Paralysis and then he mixed All the Love and Torn Up. And PB&J he produced and mixed as well. So yeah, he a lot of songs in like a really kind of important time.
So
Like
speaking of All
he's
the Love, is it true that a fan got the artwork for All the Love tattooed on their body? Is this true or is this fake news?
this is true. This is true. Yeah. Shout out to Zan. Yeah. Um, forearm tattoo, really big forearm tattoo of the All the Love artwork, which was made by our friend Charlotte. She made that artwork. She's made a lot of our artworks, almost all of them, and all of our logos were made by Charlotte as well. So, yeah, that is real,
All
real
right.
fact.
So the song Regicide. So I had to look up what
Mm.
that word meant. So side means to kill or kill off. That's why there's suicide, genocide, all the
Yeah.
sides. So regicide, I had to check out. So for our listeners who, like me, yesterday had no idea what regicide means, can you share that what that definition is?
Regicide means to kill the king. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that that's the definition. But yeah, we used to have this catchphrase, and we still technically a catchphrase, but like our it was like "Ready the Prince, the King is dead," and that actually we came up with that when we came up with the band name. That was like kind of part of like why we chose the band name because we like that meaning. So yeah, and then when it came to writing songs, I was just brainstorming, and I like to look up words and look up meanings, and I found that word, and I knew I could write a song with that for sure. I was like, okay, here we go. This is us right here. So yeah, that's Regicide.
Yeah, so a person who kills or takes part in killing a king. So that's a pretty
Mm.
awesome word. And I also like, ready the prince, the king is dead or whatever you said. Do you
Yeah,
feel like that's also could be like a metaphor for a changing of the guard? Like ready the prince is on its way up and it's like whoever's there, it's like you guys are the new thing that's coming to take over.
that's exactly what our mindset was when we started the band. We were like, we're gonna be the best. Ready the Prince, the King is dead, and we're changing, we were different. We had a different mindset back then for sure. We were hungry, young kids who wanted to prove ourselves, and yeah, that was totally our mindset. But I think over the years, that meaning has developed because I think it could be a personal meaning too. Just like, you know, growing and kind of like the old you dies and the new you comes into play. And there's so many different kind of like meanings that I've kind of figured out with it, and I think that's what makes it a cool band name for us is that you can kind of interpret it how you want. But I will say, yeah, the original meaning definitely was like we wanted to be the best. So yeah.
The young and hungry band that's looking to take over the world. It reminds me of Metallica's debut album Kill 'Em All. It was the same thing, right? It's like
Yeah.
they're going city to city, take no prisoner. Let's kill them all. So that's what it reminded me of. You guys have made a lot of music videos over the years, like a surprising
Mm.
amount of music videos for all the singles, and then there's been 2 music videos for the new album. Can you share any memories when you think back to the making of any of the music videos? Are there any funny stories or anything you can share from behind the scenes?
Yeah, well, so in terms of the music videos, like I think the ones that stand out of the ones that are filmed are Tina because that is filmed at a house that me and Dan lived at. We lived with our friend James, who is the star of that video, and he gets a shout out in the song. So his name is in the song, and we used to so how that happened was we posted a couple of video clips of James like dancing to our song. So he danced to like Torn Up and he danced to like All the Love and he's just like rocking out and dancing. Just like these funny little phone videos that I think we posted or sent around maybe on Twitter or something like that. And then when it came to the music video for Tina, we decided to have him like do like an actual like choreographed thing like and like make it more official. And so yeah, like he did that all in one take. And shout out to the videographer on the video. His name is Zebra. Zebra Media is his company, and he had to like follow James around, and it was all in one take. James probably did like 20 takes all around this house that we were living at, and then Dan also came in and they did like a fake sword fight, which goes back to their childhood. They actually grew up together. They met when they were like 3 years old, and they always used to do like fake sword fights with like um, tree branches and stuff like that in like elementary school. So like they brought that skill back, and they have this like weird talent for that. So yeah, it was just like a hilarious video and one I look back on in amazement still because of the performance James put together for that. But yeah, like even like All the Love was a pretty funny video because it was just me running. That was a very tiring video. And then Torn Up was a really fun video shoot as well. We got like a bunch of people there for that. So that was like it was super cold that day. That's a memory from that. And then the other videos, I mean, I got to give a huge shout out to Shoreler. He's like, the unofficial fourth member of the band. He's like our best friend who's done like a ton of our artworks, merch, designs, and he helps us with content, all that stuff too. So and he made the Regicide video and the Pray lyric video. Just him by himself creating that, and it's like really amazing. So yeah, we've got some good videos up there, which is cool for sure.
So let's dive into the new album. This is probably what you're most excited to talk about. So Book of OG comes out in September 2023. And there's a new band member. So Bradley Thibodeau joins as the drummer in 2021. So he was a part of this album. We've talked about Dan, we've talked about you. Can you talk about Bradley for a second? He comes into play for this album, and what does he bring to the table?
He brings a lot to the table. He is one hell of a drummer. I've always been a fan of Brad. He's in a band called Possum. They're another band from Toronto, and so I've been watching him play drums for years. I discovered Possum um, right around the same time of the RTP EP, so maybe 2015, 2016, and it was just like this one video that randomly popped on my Facebook feed of like them playing live, and I was like, "Whoa, this is the craziest band I've ever seen! Like, I gotta go see them live." And I instantly went to their show. They're playing a show at the Central, which is this tiny venue in Toronto that no longer exists. And I just went, and I remember just being amazed, especially by Brad. Like the whole band is incredible, but like Brad is like one hell of a live drummer. Like it's incredible what he does when he's just in his zone. So yeah, he brings like an energy and a passion um, for drums and for music that is really just amazing. And he definitely helped us with this record, just like take these songs to levels that we never thought we could have ever brought them. And he's like he's just got so much power, so much like he's technical, but at the same time he's like punk and he's rock and he's R&B and he's hip hop. He's everything in a lot of ways that me and Dan are as musicians as well. So he's just like the perfect kind of like just like fit for us, and it's been really fun now like writing songs with him too. And yeah, he's I can't say enough about Brad.
So you guys have released 3 singles from the new album. So there's Backslider, there's Sabretooth, and there's OG. Backslider and OG are my 2 favorite songs off the album. There's 8 songs on the album, I believe. So I agree with your single choices. And
Cool.
we have a fan question sent in, someone that also agrees with your single choices. So this is from Cheyenne
Hmm.
Rose. And
Hmm.
her question is, well, she starts by saying, well, I'd probably spend the first hour panic fangirling, but after the first question, uh, I'd ask, what's the story or inspiration for Backslider? It really resonates with me, and I'd love to hear how the song came to be. So that's from Cheyenne Rose.
Cool. So Backslider, that is a Dan song. So there's certain songs where Dan will bring in, like I kind of mentioned, like these like guitar parts, and then we'll kind of create a song out of it. But he came in with the Backslider. So he basically took his Stratocaster guitar and drop tuned it to C sharp, and I think tuned everything down half a step. So it was like this experiment he kind of did with his guitar, and he was really inspired with this new tuning of his guitar. Yeah, he just wrote this crazy like verse riff for Backslider, and then we kind of just started jamming over it, and we knew it definitely had potential. And then I think yeah. So the verse riff came first, and then I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna try and make this into like a song with like a vocal melody and lyrics. And then I started writing it, and then me and him together kind of jammed out the chorus, and then we had the riff as well, and then when it came to the lyrics, um, it was a song that we wrote about um, falling, like the word backslider for me means like kind of falling back into your old habits or your old self when you're trying to kind of break out of that. So that's like the gist of where the lyrics came, and there was like a really cool kind of theme with that I wanted to talk about with that song. And I think it's something that is, I think something everyone can relate to, especially myself. So it was really cool to kind of put a song like that together. But yeah, it's cool. It's like it's very different from anything else we've ever released. So it's a song I'm definitely proud of.
And what's the inspiration behind the title of the album? So, Book of OG. Is there some lore here?
Sort of. I mean, so Book of OG, obviously the title track, or the first song on the record, OG, basically OG means prince in Japanese. And again, that was me exploring and trying to find just creative things to write songs about, and just words like regicide, sometimes I'll just kind of stumble upon words, and maybe I was messing around with Google Translate. I think that's how it happened. And I really like the Japanese language. I've always just thought it's like a really cool language. Just like the words, they just look cool and sound cool to me. And when I saw OG for Prince, I was like, oh yeah, like this is I want to use this. Like this is really cool. So it kind of like I kind of then wrote that song, and I used OG as like a character in the song. I have a line in the song. It's like, look, it's OG, the chosen one. And so it kind of had this like idea that there's like this Messiah, and like that was like OG, and it's like the Prince, which is like, there's so many different ways to look at it, but that's basically where it came from. And in a way, with this album title, which took us a long time to figure out, by the way. We went through a lot of different album titles. It is definitely something that is hard for us. Titles and artworks are very difficult for us, but not song titles, album titles. Song titles are pretty easy, but there's something about naming an album that is just like way harder.
It's like more
So
important, it has to
yeah,
represent a bunch of songs and
yeah.
the band and your image and all those things. Can you share any of the album titles that didn't make the cut? I feel like, fans probably would have never heard what the other titles are. I don't know if you're allowed to share this stuff.
Well, I mean, I'm just like almost too embarrassed to share some of them, but I mean, one of them, like we were almost gonna call the album Before I'm Gone. And shout out to Schorler. He loves Before I'm Gone, and we had talked about the reasons why the album should be called Before I'm Gone. We were gonna call the album just OG, um, on its own for a while. That's what we were calling it. We had another one, a good one I can mention is A Stage of Fools, which comes from a Shakespeare quote that, from King Lear, I believe, that Luke, Grunts from Cleopatra, shared with us when he kind of gave us like his kind of, he basically did like a little like his thoughts on our album, and he mentioned this Shakespeare quote, and it was really cool, and everything, all his meanings behind that is the reason why Dan wanted to call the record Stage of Fools at one point. But it's tough because like you can have an album like in a name that like means a lot and means exactly what you want the album to represent, but then it's like then it comes down to the actual name just like feeling right, or like being, like I guess like memorable or whatever. And yeah, so Book of OG, we look at this song, we look at we sorry, this album, we look at the songs in this album, and it very much feels like stories, um and just kind of it's like a very dark, like in a lot of ways mysterious record. And when we put the track list together, it had this like sequence in a sense. And when it came down to it, that's just the title that really felt right, and then mixed with the artwork too, because for us it was like to come up with the title we needed to know the artwork, and then to know the artwork we needed the title, so like it had to happen together. And that's why we kind of ended up going with like that book theme, because it just, it's the type of record that we feel like the music speaks for itself. So we wanted to keep the album cover simple and kind of like mysterious, and just have like that RTP up there, and yeah, just kind of like go along for the journey essentially.
Can you give us some insight into the recording of the album? Is it true that you guys built a studio in a container? Is that a real thing? I hear rumors
Well,
of these things.
so that is true, but that is Brad. That is Brad. So Brad is also like a very skilled construction worker and carpenter, and he's just like he can do anything. with his hands kind of guy, and he's built a lot of different things, and he built his studio, which is, yeah, like it is essentially like a trailer container or whatever you want to call it, turned into a studio. And that is not where we record the album. That is where we do all our demos, and that is where we jam and practice. But we recorded the album in Union Sound Company, which is a studio in Toronto. And Darren McGill, shout out Darren McGill. He's an amazing engineer. He works at Union, and he engineered the whole record for us. And yeah, we rented out Union Sound Studio for like 6 days, and we just hammered out 7 tracks at that time. Before I'm Gone came later, so the first 7 tracks that we recorded were the other tracks on the record, not Before I'm Gone, and that was all recorded in 6 days at Union Sound Company, and with Luke and Ian from Kilpatrick came, and they were there for every single session that week, and they stayed at my place, and Darren, and then we ended up going back a month later to finish vocals and like do some touch ups on some things, and then yeah, and then months later, we ended up recording Before I'm Gone with David Bottrell producing, which is an amazing experience. But again, at Union Sound Company with Darren engineering still. So it felt like it still kind of like was all one, but there was a lot of months in between. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much how we recorded it. There was no post production. It was literally just like those days in the studio, and then David mixed it.
So I looked up Darren McGill, and man, this guy's worked with Monster Truck, the Flatliners, the Dirty Nil, Pup, Silverstein. Man, that's amazing, man. This guy's worked with everybody, and you guys actually had to sit on the album for over a year for business related reasons. How hard was it to sit on an album that you were so proud of and couldn't wait for it to get released? And then how happy were you guys once the album finally came out in September?
It was definitely a interesting experience. Like it was more weird. It was just so weird to be like we were just writing a new album because we were like, okay, like what else are we gonna do now? But like let's just like keep writing because that's what we love to do. So it was almost like we even like just forgot these songs even like existed because no one knew them, and we just kind of like moved on from them in a sense. In a sense, we always knew we'd be releasing, but like there comes a point when you're sitting on an album for so long that you just end up just doubting it completely. We knew it was great, but like there was always like I don't know when you don't release something, it's like you never really know what it's going to be. So it was tough. It was tough for sure. If we could do it again, I'm sure we just release it way earlier. But I think it somehow worked out. It worked out when we have released it. It's been kind of awesome to kind of have this new kind of rebirth with the songs, and like now we're playing them live, and it's like they feel new now, even though they're so old. Like they feel so new now because we're playing them live for the first time, and we had to like learn them, like relearn them, like again basically, and we had to be able to play them even better than when we recorded them because playing live is a whole other animal. And so yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome to get them out and to hear that people have been connecting with the songs, especially because like these songs in this record in a lot of ways is like it's not a safe record. There's a lot of you know vulnerable, challenging, especially lyrically for me. So that was the hardest part, is just like questioning, like because you get to this point where you've been kind of like separated from these songs for so long, where I don't even remember what I was thinking when I wrote these songs. Like it was just so long ago. So it's really difficult for me. It was really difficult for me to kind of like stay kind of like confident that like um I guess they were going to connect, or people would get kind of understand them. But I kept telling myself, and I've always told myself this, anytime I feel like, worried or insecure about the lyrics of the song, it's always the songs that end up connecting the most. And I've learned that, and so that's kind of like anytime now I'm like, I need to feel that way, or else I don't think I got deep enough, or wrote something meaningful enough. So I'm that was the biggest challenge for sure. Of
So I'd like to dive into a few specific songs on the album, if that's okay with you.
course.
So the first song, OG, uh, to me, it sounds like the song was built around that bass line. Can you remember when you first came up with that riff?
So the song was actually written on an acoustic guitar completely. But that riff came into play after. So I wrote that whole song on an acoustic guitar, and I brought it to Jordan and Dan because at this point Jordan was in the band, and I wrote we were just jamming the intro. So I kind of taught um, Dan, like I just told Dan like what I was playing on guitar for that intro, and then he started playing that intro, and then Jordan just laid down the groove, and then I just started playing the bass riff. Like we were in a rehearsal factory in Toronto. We used to jam it out of a rehearsal factory at one point, and just kind of started playing the bass line, and then Jordan had an idea for like a little melody change in the bass line, and because I was going like I was just doing the bum 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 bum, right? Like that's how it starts. So that's actually Jordan bum 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 bum. He kind of was like, hey, why don't you try bum 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 bum? Because before I was just doing boom 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 boom. So I was just doing that, and then he kind of had the idea for the other kind of boom 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 boom. So that's the story behind that bass line. If you want to get specific, Jordan had a big role in that. As he always did, he's got a great ear, and he would hear like little things like that. And Yeah, that's the story behind the bass line.
So the song In Vain, is this the band's most danceable song? And when you play this live, do crowds do they cut a rug? Do they bust a groove?
You know what? We've only played it a few times live, to be honest.
It's
So
the drums that
uh,
really give a dance groove to it, I find.
yeah, probably. I mean, I would say maybe Cliff Diver potentially. Or even like, Dead Roads. Like we have some songs that are like pretty groovy as well. Like I'd say maybe Dead Roads is also like a jumper, but I think it's groovy too. I think In Vain, I mean, yeah, you could definitely dance to it, but it's almost like that dance beat that's like you it almost makes you I don't know, for me that song like it's almost like trying to put my words together here. But I wouldn't necessarily dance to it, but it's just like hearing like that dance beat in the background just gives me that type of feeling. Like rather like so you're kind of like laying down, but you like hear a dance beat. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I hope some people start dancing to it. I would love that. I'm definitely gonna be dancing on stage to it, so hopefully people follow my lead.
So David Bottrell mixed the album, but he also produced one song, which is Before I'm Gone. And we have a fan question sent in. So this is from Sven Marcotti. And his question is, what was it like having a legend like David Bottrell produce a song on your album? And how did you get him?
It was so to answer the second question, it's as simple as sending an email to his manager. And he I think he heard the demo, and he was like, hell yeah, let's do this. So yeah, it's as simple as that. Just sent him the song, and we had a meeting. I think it was a phone call, and yeah, working with David Bottrell was an amazing experience. Like you never know what to expect when you're working with like a legend like him, but like it was just like he's not an intimidating guy at all. Like he is just so like easy to work with, and he really lets you be yourself. Like he obviously contributes a lot, but at the same time, like he's trying to find the how I experienced it was like he was trying to find the best in us, and he kept like he was just like very open to anything that we wanted to do, and he just it felt very collaborative working with him, and he has such a great sense for just like music in general. Like even mix like the way he mixed the record, like he would always refer back to like the dynamics of the song, and just aspects of like almost like a classical approach in some ways. Like it almost felt like he was like he has like a composer background or something, because that's how he would always kind of talk about the songs, and he just had a great feel, and just a ton of fun to be around. Just great overall vibe in the studio. So it was just like all positive working with David Bottrell.
So I have some kind words sent in from the legend himself, three-time Grammy Award-winning producer David Bottrell. He says, Steve and Reddy the Prince are carrying on the tradition of the power trio. And he knows, man, he's worked with Rush. So he says, they have a great punk energy, but also write strong melodies and song structures and are really developing their own compositional signature. I really enjoyed working with them and look forward to hearing new material. So that's from David Bottrell.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
There you go. So did it start with him coming on to just produce the one song, and then afterwards you guys decided you got him to mix the whole album, or was it reverse?
It was kind of like both at the same time. It was like we knew we wanted to try to do one more song to kind of complete it, just because 7 songs just didn't feel like enough for like the full LP, which was our goal, and we wanted to do one more song and try to do a song that was a little bit different from the rest of the songs, and work with someone on it, because we had self-produced the rest of them, and we thought, hey, look, let's try to have like someone come in and help us with the song, and see what that can do, and maybe this song will be on another level, but then it was just also just like we knew, then we knew we wanted him to mix it too. So it made sense to just like do both at the same time. And that's essentially what happened. And it was just a great experience, like you learn a lot when you work with really experienced producers. And we've also worked with Dave Schiffman as well, on Lightning, Regicide, and Prey, and he's another legendary producer engineer. So, like just the opportunity to work with professionals like that, it's like there's so much that you take from it that is really priceless. So it's always worth it.
So
Sure.
the song Death, was there any fear releasing an acoustic song and a song that's very vulnerable? You're talking about vulnerability before.
Well, so it's funny with that song. We definitely could have done more with it instrumentally, but it was like circumstance where we only had a certain amount of days in the studio that we like could afford, and with that song, it was always an acoustic song, and we were always like, okay, eventually we're gonna like make Death into like a full band song. Eventually we'll make it to a full band song, and then the closer we got to the recording, it was just like, what if we just do it acoustically? And we also just didn't have time to record it with a full band, because like that means like another song you gotta do on drums, another song you gotta do with like full guitars and bass and whatever. So yeah, like the more we thought about it as we got closer to recording, we're just like, I think this song is just it just works. And then when we figured out the track list, having the acoustic song on there felt like a really really good idea, because it's such a part of me as a songwriter. A lot of that album, almost the whole album, was written on an acoustic guitar. So I felt like it made sense to have a song that just like it's a song that came together organically, and it was very much the type of song that came together quickly and pretty much in one sitting like that. So it made sense to just have it be performed. But yeah, and I think that's the whole point. It is a vulnerable song, so why not strip it back and kind of like have it be what it truly is. So
So let's talk about touring before we wrap up the interview. You guys wrapped up a tour with Protest the Hero, so a very popular Canadian band. I saw them so long ago that they were on a bill in Ottawa at a venue called Club Saw, that back then it was maybe 80 people capacity. This was like before they made it big. I saw them that long ago. And then to bring it full circle, I just saw them with your show with them a few months ago. What would you say were the highlights of your tour with Protest the Hero?
highlights of Protest the Hero. I mean, we played a massive show with them in London, the London Music Hall, which was crazy. Like that definitely sticks out. just like the sheer size of the venue and playing. The biggest thing playing with Protest the Hero was playing to a metal audience, essentially. Was so much fun and so different. We've never had that opportunity before. Again, it comes back to our whole like not knowing what our sound is and like we're never really heavy enough to play like necessarily with like metal bands, and then to get this opportunity to play with Protest the Hero, it was such a big challenge. We were like, okay, like we gotta go and we gotta like open for Protest the Hero and play in front of fans who are about to see like such an incredibly technically proficient band and that have like completely different styles to us in a lot of ways. And we gotta try and win this crowd over. So yeah, just that overall experience just sticks out as like a huge kind of moment for us where we were like, okay, we could do this. I'm sure there's plenty of people who probably didn't like us like in terms of like our style, but I mean, I felt like for the most part we were able to win over the crowds and just the meeting the band and seeing them play live just the hero was like such an awesome experience too. Like there's such great people and amazing musicians and so just being exposed to that is always like inspiring and just like a privilege, like it's awesome. It's awesome just to be able to play like they're probably the most famous band we've ever played with. So that's just really cool. Really, really cool.
I saw Alexis on Fire perform at London Music Hall to show how badass that venue is. So you guys
Yeah.
playing there with Protest the Hero is pretty awesome. You guys have an exciting upcoming tour. So February and March 2024, you guys are going on tour with Dead Poets Society. This is your biggest tour yet. What can you share with our listeners about this tour? And what can your fans expect if they come out to see you at a live show?
This tour is one of those tours where it's like it's not gonna feel real until we just show up in Lisbon, which is the first show in Portugal. It's like we're playing so many new countries that we've never even dreamt of playing, like honestly, with this tour. So it's such an amazing opportunity for us to see all these different places and play to all these people that we may not have ever had the opportunity to play for. So, I mean, what they can expect is a band that is incredibly grateful to be in that position, and we're definitely going to be just playing our hearts out, and like we always do. But like, I think it's different when you go overseas and you're so far from home. It's like, yeah, we really try to tap into something, and I think the crowds are going to be really, really fun to play to because I mean we played overseas a few times now and like there's an amazing energy in a lot of those shows and Dead Poet Society is such a great band and I know they have a lot of passionate fans and it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think anybody who comes out to those shows is gonna be happy that they did for sure.
So I have just three final questions for you, but these are the most difficult questions of the interview. Can you handle the final three questions here?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're nearing the end of the year. 2023 is coming to a
Mm,
close. When you look ahead at next year, 2024, if
mm.
everything turned out the way you wanted it to turn out, if you could kind of will things into existence for 2024, what would that year look like for the band?
Well, we would probably like okay, if I could will it into existence, we would find the funds to afford to record a second album because we have a lot of music kind of waiting in the wings. So I mean that would be the most exciting thing to do, We're already getting such an amazing opportunity to tour. Um, any other opportunities we get to tour would be amazing too. So I mean, hey, if we can go in and record another album and tour a bunch of cities that have people in them that want to hear us play, that would be all we could ask for in terms of Ready to Prince for sure. But we'll see. I mean, I don't think I don't know if that'll happen, but we'll see. Maybe we can record a little bit though.
We've put it out there into the ether though, so we'll see if the universe responds. When you look back on your life and career, what are you most proud of, and what are you most grateful for?
I'm most proud of, I guess, the work I've put in, especially as a singer. I think I've really proved something that, someone can be a bad singer and then become a good singer. And now I teach singing, so it's amazing what like a mindset can do. So yeah, I'm really really proud of where I've gotten as a singer, and I want to definitely continue to develop my voice. But yeah, even as a songwriter, and I'm proud of some of the songs, most of the songs really, and what I've been able to kind of put into songs. It's hard to be kind of vulnerable, right? Like we talked about. So I'm proud of that though. And I'm most grateful for, like, I mean, just the opportunities we get to play to people who want to hear us play, and people who love our music. I mean, it's a dream come true for sure. Just to have anybody who cares. For us to be able to release an album, 11 years in, to release our debut album. It's still amazing, just to know that people are excited to hear it. Um, it's all you could ever ask for, really. So yeah, like that's what we're grateful for, just being able to play for, even just to have the band together. That's a huge part about being in a band that people don't necessarily think of all the time, is like just to have the band together. There's been moments in our careers where we haven't had a drummer, and that's all we wanted. We're like, if we could just have a drummer, I'd be happy. So even just being grateful to have Daniel this entire time, and Brad now. That's just to be able to play with those guys, and yeah, that's all I can ask for. So
It's funny that you release your debut album and now, you're an overnight success 11 years in the making, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So what advice would you give your 10-year-old self? If you could go back in time, you could sit down next to your 10-year-old self and you look at your life that you've lived since then, and you look at your experiences and your lessons and mentorship and your ups and downs, your successes and failures. What advice do you give to cute little Steve sitting there with a beautiful head of hair? What advice do you give him to help guide him through this human experience?
That is so tricky. Like, I don't think 10-year-old Steve would listen to anything I had to say. I was a pretty I was the type of kid that just like didn't do his homework. So I don't think I was listening to what I might have said. But I will say one thing I really wish that I could say to 10-year-old Steve is, listen, buddy, play piano, practice the piano, and get as far as you can with your training, and get your chops up, because when you're older, you're gonna wish that you did. So that, I mean, for a strictly musical reason, that is the main thing I would make sure 10-year-old Steve realizes. Hey, just go through it and get really good, because you're gonna want to be better. You're gonna want to use those skills later. Because now I'm learning piano now, and I have for like a few years now, and it's something I wish I just already had it in the back of my I wish I already had that skill. But yeah, other than that, I mean, in terms of what I've learned, I don't know. I don't think there's anything I could say. You just got to learn. You got to live and learn. That's it. I'm still learning. So I would say just like, hey, just stay out of trouble, I guess, which I've managed to. So yeah, that's it. I think the piano thing would be the main thing I would try to drill to 10-year-old Steve.
You're not going to tell little Steve to double down on the tuba? I mean, what is this?
See, the two would have happened anyways, like he would have been fine. But it's like the piano, that didn't happen. He needed that, and he didn't do it. So he needs that reminder.
You sound a little angry at 10-year-old Steve here with the Lost piano
Yeah, because I
opportunities. I'm
was
just joking around. Yeah.
no, you're right though. But I was, I was a lazy kid. I wish I would have put in that work because those are the musicians and stuff like that who have the upper hand. When you learn and develop a skill at a young age, like yeah, you're way ahead. Because time is precious. Time is precious, and there's like it's a great time to learn an instrument when you're a kid and you're just playing video games all day, anyways.
So, as we wrap up, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a bass player, as a singer, as a songwriter. I want to thank you for releasing great music. I mean, I've been listening to your music a lot for the last year. I've really been sinking my teeth into the new album. I've listened to it 4 or 5 times. So, some of those spins are from me on Spotify. And last but not least, I want to thank you for this interview, for sitting down with me for the last 2 hours, answering all my ridiculous questions. I really appreciate it. So, Steve, thank you for your time.
Joel, thank you so much. This has been an honor. It has not felt like 2 hours. It has felt like 5 minutes, and I really enjoyed it. And I also want to say thank you to all the fans who sent in questions. And yeah, thank you for all your amazing questions and for putting the time and effort you did into this. It's really amazing. So thank you, Joel.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the kind words. So, to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. To the Steve fans, to the Ready the Prince fans, thanks for sticking with us for the last 2 hours, and we'll see you on the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's episode of the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. What I want to know is who would you like me to sit down with next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know by reaching out to me on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Joel Martin Mastery. Joel is Joel. And you can find me on Twitter and Snapchat at Joel Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.